I'd been pouring coffee in the same fluorescent-lit diner for 3 years, and I'd learned to read people the way other women read tarot cards. The nervous twitches, the wandering eyes, the way someone held their fork told me if they were lonely, angry, or running from something they couldn't name. But the man in booth 7 was different. He didn't fidget, didn't check his phone, didn't even blink much. He just sat there in a charcoal suit that cost more than my rent, drinking espresso like he had all the time in the world, even though I could feel the tension rolling off him in waves. I'd noticed him the moment he walked in, tall, dark-haired, with a face that looked carved from something harder than marble, sharp jaw, sharper eyes, the kind of beautiful that made you think of fallen angels and bad decisions. "Refill?" I asked, approaching with the pot. He glanced up, and for a moment, I forgot how to breathe. His eyes were the color of smoke before a fire, gray and depthless, and they studied me with an intensity that felt like being X-rayed. "Please." His voice was low, controlled, dangerous in a way I couldn't articulate. I poured, keeping my hand steady even though my pulse had kicked into a sprint. The diner was nearly empty, just old Mr. Chen reading his paper by the window and a trucker named Dale working through his 4th slice of pie. And then I saw them. 3 men had just entered, spreading out with the casual precision of wolves circling prey. They wore leather jackets despite the August heat, and their eyes locked onto booth 7 with the kind of focus that made my stomach drop. The beautiful man in the expensive suit hadn't noticed. He was reading something on his phone, one elegant finger tapping the screen. I should have walked away. Should have pretended I didn't see the bulge under the leader's jacket or the way his hand drifted toward it. Should have let whatever was about to happen just happen. But my mouth opened before my brain could stop it. "More sugar?" I asked, smiling brightly as I leaned in close enough that my hair brushed his shoulder. "Don't turn around. They're behind you." His finger stopped mid-tap. For 3 heartbeats, he didn't move. Then, slowly, he set down his phone and looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. "How many?" His voice was barely above a whisper. 3, by the door. "Armed?" "I think so." He reached into his jacket. I tensed, but he only pulled out a money clip, peeling off what looked like several $100 bills and setting them on the table. "When I stand up," he said, still looking at me with those impossible eyes, "you're going to walk into the kitchen and stay there until you hear the bell over the door ring twice. Understand?" "What? Do you understand?" There was something in his voice that made saying no feel impossible. I nodded. He stood in one fluid motion, and everything happened fast. The 3 men moved forward. The beautiful stranger's hand went to the small of his back. Mr. Chen dove under his table. Dale froze with his fork halfway to his mouth. I ran. The kitchen door swung shut behind me, just as the first shot cracked through the air. I slammed into Carlos, our line cook, sending a tray of dishes crashing to the floor. "Get down," I hissed, dragging him behind the prep counter. More shots. The sound of breaking glass, a man's grunt of pain. Then silence so complete I could hear my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. I counted the seconds. 15, 30, 45. The bell over the door chimed once, twice. I stood on shaking legs and pushed back through the kitchen door. The diner looked like a crime scene. Shattered coffee cups, bullet holes in the vinyl booth seats. A spray of something dark on the floor near the door that I didn't want to look at too closely. The 3 men were gone. So was the beautiful stranger. But on the counter, weighted down by a salt shaker, was a business card. Heavy stock, embossed lettering. No name, just a phone number and a single word. Vittorio. And underneath, in handwriting that looked like it had been carved rather than written, "Thank you." I picked up the card with trembling fingers, and that's when I noticed the detail that would haunt me for days. A tiny drop of blood on the corner, still wet enough to smear when my thumb brushed across it. Mr. Chen emerged from under his table, muttering in Cantonese. Dale had apparently decided to leave without paying, and I stood there in the wreckage, holding a stranger's card, and wondering what kind of man said thank you after a shootout in a diner. The kind you should run from, I told myself. But I slipped the card into my apron pocket anyway. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those gray eyes looking at me with that impossible intensity. Heard that low, controlled voice saying when I stand up like he'd choreographed violence 1,000 times before. The police came, eventually. Took statements. Looked at me like I was lying when I said I didn't know who the man in booth 7 was. They found blood outside, a lot of it, but no bodies, no suspects. Just bullet casings and my shaking hands, and the business card burning a hole in my pocket that I didn't mention. I should have mentioned it. Instead, I went home to my studio apartment above the Korean dry cleaner and stared at that card for 2 hours straight, wondering what would happen if I called the number. Nothing good, probably. I threw it in the trash. Then I pulled it out again at 3 in the morning and tucked it into the drawer of my nightstand, underneath the pepper spray my mother had given me when I moved to the city. 3 days passed. The diner got new booth seats. Carlos quit, saying he didn't get paid enough to dodge bullets. I picked up his shifts because rent was due, and my savings account was a joke. On the 4th day, a black Mercedes pulled up outside during the lunch rush. I was wiping down table 6 when I saw him through the window, and my heart did something complicated and painful in my chest. Same charcoal suit, or one identical to it, same carved features, but this time, when he walked through the door, he moved differently, careful, like someone who'd recently been shot. He sat in booth 7. Of course he did. I took a breath, grabbed the coffee pot, and walked over like my hands weren't shaking. "Espresso?" I asked. "Please." He studied me with those smoke-colored eyes. "And your name?" "We don't do names here. Just coffee and questionable meatloaf." The corner of his mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. "You didn't call?" "Didn't know I was supposed to." "You saved my life." I poured his espresso, concentrating on keeping my hand steady. "You left money for the coffee. We're even." "That's not how this works." "How what works?" He leaned back, wincing slightly. "Definitely shot, then. Or at least hurt. When someone saves a life in my world, there's a debt. I don't like debts. Then don't owe them." This time he did smile, but it was a strange thing, sharp and dark and somehow sad. "What's your name?" I should have walked away, should have told him to leave and never come back. But there was something magnetic about him, something that made rational thought feel optional. "Maya," I said. "Maya." He repeated it like he was tasting the syllables. "I'm Vittorio Constantino." The name hit me like cold water. Everyone in this city knew that name. The Constantinos owned half the waterfront, ran the other half, and had their fingers in everything from construction to city council. They were power. They were danger. They were the kind of family you cross the street to avoid. "I need to go," I said. His hand shot out, catching my wrist. Not hard, I could have pulled away easily, but the touch sent electricity racing up my arm. "Please," he said. And that single word carried more weight than any threat could have. "Sit with me. 5 minutes. I'm working. I bought the diner this morning. You're on break." I stared at him. "You what?" The owner was happy to sell. He's been wanting to retire anyway. Vittorio released my wrist but didn't stop looking at me. "Sit, Maya." I sat. The vinyl booth squeaked under my weight, and suddenly I was close enough to smell him, expensive cologne and gunpowder, and something darker underneath, like smoke and secrets. "Why?" I asked. "Because 3 men tried to kill me in your workplace, and you warned me instead of running. I want to know why." I didn't think about it. "Exactly." He leaned forward, and I noticed the way the light caught the planes of his face, making him look both angelic and demonic. "Most people would have. You have good instincts, Maya. That's rare. Is that why you bought the diner? To tell me I have good instincts?" "I bought the diner because now I own the place where you work, which means I can keep you safe." "Safe from what?" His expression darkened. "The men who came here weren't just after me. They saw you warn me. That makes you a witness, a liability." The floor seemed to drop out from under me. "I didn't see anything." "Doesn't matter what you saw. Matters what they think you saw." He pulled out his phone, tapped something, then turned the screen toward me. I was looking at a photograph of myself, taken from across the street. Yesterday, walking home after my shift. "They're watching you," Vittorio said softly. "Which means I need to watch you too. This is insane. This is my world." He pocketed the phone. "And you stepped into it the moment you opened your mouth." I wanted to argue, to scream, to tell him to take his blood money, and his bought diner, and his dangerous gray eyes, and leave me alone. But when I opened my mouth, all that came out was, "What do you want from me?" "I want you to let me protect you." "I don't need protection." "You do. You just don't know it yet." He stood, leaving another small fortune on the table. "I'll have someone watch your building tonight. Don't be afraid of the man in the black sedan. He's mine. Vittorio." He paused at the door, looking back at me with an expression I couldn't read. "You should have let me die, Maya. Would have been safer for both of us." Then he was gone, and I was alone in booth 7 with cold coffee, and the creeping certainty that my life had just changed in ways I couldn't begin to understand. That night, There was a black sedan parked across from my building. And in my mailbox, a new phone, expensive, unlocked with a single contact saved. The phone rang at 2 a.m. I'd been lying awake anyway, staring at the ceiling and listening to the sounds of the city through my thin walls. Sirens, shouts, the persistent drip of the leaky faucet I kept meaning to fix. When the screen lit up with that single letter V, my heart stuttered. I answered without thinking. "Hello? Are you awake?" His voice was rougher than usual, stripped of that controlled smoothness. "Are you hurt?" The question came automatically. A pause. Then, quietly. "How did you know?" "I can hear it. In your voice." I sat up, pulling my knees to my chest. "Where are you?" "Somewhere I shouldn't be." A sound like leather creaking him shifting position. "I had them drive past your building. Saw your light on. It's 2 a.m. Lots of lights are on. Yours is different. 4th floor, corner unit. You have those sheer curtains that make the light look gold." Something warm and dangerous bloomed in my chest. "You've been watching my window?" "I've been watching you." No apology in his voice. No shame. Making sure you're safe. From the men in the leather jackets? From everyone. Another pause. Longer this time. "Can I ask you something? You just bought the place where I work and put a guard on my building. I think you've earned a question. Why didn't you run? That day. Most people would have hidden, called 911, protected themselves." His voice dropped lower. "But you warned a stranger instead." I thought about lying. About giving him some noble answer about doing the right thing, or being brave. But something in his tone made me want to tell the truth. "I've spent 3 years pouring coffee for people who don't see me," I said, "who look through me like I'm furniture." You looked at me. Really looked. Like I was real. I traced the pattern on my blanket. Maybe that sounds stupid. It doesn't. He was quiet for so long I thought he'd hung up. Then, "I need to see you." "Now?" "Yes. Vittorio. Please, Maya." That word again, weighted with something that felt like desperation. "I'm asking. Not commanding." I should have said no. Should have hung up and thrown the phone in the trash and pretended none of this was happening. "Where are you?" I asked instead. He gave me an address in the warehouse district, the kind of place where questions didn't get asked, and bloodstains washed away with the rain. I dressed quickly, jeans, sneater, my worn leather jacket, and slipped out past the man in the black sedan, who pretended not to notice me leaving. The cab driver looked skeptical when I gave him the address, but took my money anyway. 20 minutes later, I was standing in front of a brick building with broken windows and a door that hung crooked on its hinges. The door opened before I could knock. Vittorio stood there in shirt sleeves, no jacket, his white shirt torn and stained with blood. A bruise was blooming along his jaw, dark purple against his olive skin, but it was his eyes that stopped me raw and unguarded in a way I hadn't seen before. "You came," he said, like he hadn't quite believed I would. "You're bleeding. It's not as bad as it looks." I pushed past him into what looked like an old office, bare walls, a desk, a leather couch that had seen better days. A medical kit lay open on the desk, gauze and antiseptic scattered like evidence of pain. "Sit down," I ordered. "Maya, sit." He sat. I moved to the desk, gathering supplies with hands that had stopped shaking somewhere between leaving my apartment and arriving here. This close, I could see the wound, a gash along his ribs, where a bullet had grazed him, angry and red but not deep. "This needs stitches," I said. "I know. I have someone who—" I worked as a nursing assistant for a year before the diner. I pulled out antiseptic. Before I figured out I didn't have the stomach for real medicine. "But I can do this." He didn't argue. I cleaned the wound as gently as I could, but he still hissed through his teeth. Up close, I could see other scars, old ones, white against his skin. A map of violence written on his body. "Who did this?" I asked. "The Volkov family. Russians. They want our territory." His jaw tightened as I pressed gauze to the wound. "They'll keep coming until they get it, or we end them." "And by end them, you mean—" "Exactly what you think I mean." He looked up at me, and there was no pretense now, no careful control, just exhaustion, and something that looked like regret. "This is what I am, Maya. This is the world I live in. Blood and territory and wars that never end. Then why drag me into it?" "Because I couldn't let you die for warning me." His hand came up, catching mine where it rested on his shoulder, "and because when you looked at me in that diner, you saw a person, not a Constantino, not a killer, just a man drinking coffee." I should have pulled away, Should have finished bandaging him and walked out and never looked back. Instead, I threaded sutures through his skin while he watched me with those smoke-colored eyes, and neither of us spoke about how my hands had stopped shaking or how his breathing had synchronized with mine. When I finished, I stepped back. There, you'll live. Will I? He stood slowly, towering over me in the cramped space. Sometimes, I'm not sure. That's a hell of a thing to say. It's a hell of a life. He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear with surprising gentleness. You should go. Before I do something we'll both regret. Like what? Like asking you to stay. His thumb traced my cheekbone. Like telling you I can't stop thinking about the way you smiled when you warned me. Like admitting I bought that diner because the thought of not seeing you every day felt impossible. The air between us crackled with electricity. I could smell the antiseptic and blood, and underneath it all, that scent that was purely him, smoke and secrets and something darker I couldn't name. You don't even know me, I whispered. I know you're brave and reckless, and you see people. His forehead dropped to mine. I know 3 years pouring coffee hasn't killed the light in your eyes. I know you came to a warehouse at 2 a.m. because a dangerous man asked you to. Maybe I'm stupid. Maybe I am. His breath ghosted across my lips. Because I should let you go, and I don't think I can. I rose on my toes, closing the distance between us. His phone buzzed. He pulled back, jaw tightening as he read the screen. You need to leave, he said, voice suddenly cold. Now. What? Now. Maya. He was already moving, shoving the medical supplies into a bag. They found this place. You have 3 minutes before. The window exploded inward. Glass rained down like diamonds catching the streetlight, and Vittorio's body slammed into mine, taking us both to the ground behind the desk. Stay down, he hissed, his weight pressing me into the dusty floor. Gunfire erupted loud, close, turning the air into chaos. Bullets punched through the walls, sending plaster dust floating like snow. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel the solid heat of him covering me and the thunder of my heart trying to break through my ribs. He shifted, pulling a gun from somewhere I couldn't see, and returned fire with calm precision. 3 shots, a scream from outside. Silence. How many? Someone shouted from the hallway, one of Vittorio's men. At least 5. Vittorio's voice was utterly controlled, like we weren't pinned down in a bullet-riddled warehouse. South entrance. Marco, take the stairs. Footsteps. More gunfire. The sound of bodies hitting the floor. Vittorio pulled me up, his hand iron tight around my wrist. We're moving. Stay behind me. Don't stop for anything. I can't. You can. Those gray eyes locked onto mine, fierce and absolute. You will. He hauled me toward a door I hadn't noticed before, hidden behind a filing cabinet. It opened onto a stairwell that smelled like rust and decay. We took the steps 2 at a time, my sneakers slapping concrete, his dress shoes somehow silent despite our speed. Behind us, the gunfire continued. Shouts, breaking glass. The wet sound of something I didn't want to identify. We burst out into an alley, rain-slicked and reeking of garbage. A black SUV screeched to a stop, and suddenly I was being shoved into the back seat, Vittorio climbing in after me. Drive, he barked at the man behind the wheel. The SUV lurched forward, tires screaming. I twisted around, looking back at the warehouse at the muzzle flashes, still lighting up windows, at the bodies sprawled on the ground. Oh God, I breathed. Vittorio's hand found mine in the darkness, squeezing once. Don't look back. But I did. I couldn't help it. We drove for 30 minutes, switching vehicles twice, taking turns that made no sense until I realized we were doubling back, losing any tail. The whole time, Vittorio made calls in rapid Italian, his voice low and dangerous. Finally, we pulled up to a building that looked like it had been carved from marble and moonlight, all clean lines and expensive architecture. The kind of place that didn't exist in my world. Where are we? I asked as he guided me inside, past a doorman who nodded without asking questions. Somewhere safe. The elevator was all mirrors and soft lighting. I caught my reflection and barely recognized myself, wild-eyed, hair tangled, dust and plaster coating my jacket. Next to me, Vittorio looked like he'd walked through war and come out forged in fire. The penthouse, because of course it was a penthouse, was all dark wood and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Minimalist furniture, abstract art, the kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself. Sit, Vittorio said, gesturing to a leather couch. I'll get you something to drink. I sat because my legs had stopped working properly. My hands were shaking again, adrenaline crashing through my system in waves. He returned with whiskey in a crystal glass, pressing it into my hands. Drink. I drank. It burned all the way down, but the fire felt good, felt real. Vittorio poured himself one, and stood by the windows, silhouetted against the glittering skyline. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "For what? Getting me shot at or kidnapping me to your fortress?" "Both. Neither." He turned, and in the low light, he looked older somehow, tired. "For pulling you into this. I should have left you alone, but you didn't. No." He crossed to me, kneeling so we were eye level. "And now they know about you. The Volkovs. They'll use you to get to me. Because I stitched you up? That's insane. Because you matter." His hand came up, cupping my face with surprising gentleness. "And they know it." My breath caught. Don't we barely know each other?" "I know." His thumb traced my lower lip. "Doesn't change anything." For a long moment, we just looked at each other, him kneeling before me like a sinner at confession, me trying to remember how to breathe. "I should go home," I whispered. "You can't. Your apartment isn't safe anymore." He stood, moving to a desk and pulling out papers. "I'm moving you. Tonight. Somewhere they can't find you. You can't just move me." "I can. I will." He looked back at me, and there was something almost desperate in his eyes. "They'll kill you, Maya. To hurt me. To send a message. Whatever, it doesn't matter. You warned me in that diner, and now you're marked." The glass slipped from my fingers, hitting the rug without breaking. "This is insane. All of this. You're insane. Probably." He returned to me, pulling me to my feet. "But you're alive, and I intend to keep you that way." "Why?" The question burst out of me. "Why do you care so much? You don't owe me anything." Because when you looked at me in booth 7, I felt human for the first time in years. His hands framed my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. Because you stitched my wounds without flinching. Because you're brave and reckless and you see me. Maya. The real me. Not the monster everyone else sees. Maybe you are a monster. I am. No hesitation. No pretty lies. I've killed men. Ordered worse. Built an empire on blood and fear. But when I'm with you, I remember what it felt like to be something else. I should have run. Should have screamed. Should have done anything except reach up and touch his face, feeling the sharp line of his jaw under my palm. "You're going to get me killed," I said. "I'm going to keep you alive." He turned his head, pressing a kiss to my palm that felt like both a promise and a threat. "Even if it kills me." His phone rang again, that same sharp buzz that had started this whole nightmare. He answered in Italian, his expression darkening with each word. "Che cosa?" "What?" His grip tightened on the phone. "Quando?" "When?" A pause. Then he was moving, shoving the phone in his pocket and grabbing a bag from the closet. "What?" I demanded. "What happened?" "They hit your building." His voice was flat, dangerous. 20 minutes ago. Broke down your door, tore the place apart looking for anything that connects you to me." The room spun. "My neighbor, Mrs. Chen. She's 80 years old. She's fine. She wasn't home." He pulled me toward the door. "But we're out of time. They know where you live, where you work. They'll keep looking until they find you. So what do we do?" He stopped, looking at me with an expression I couldn't read. "We disappear." "For how long?" "Until I end this." He opened the door, checking the hallway. One way or another. As we stepped into the elevator, I caught my reflection again, still wild-eyed, still dust-covered. But something had changed. Something fundamental had shifted. I'd stepped into his world, and there was no stepping back. The safe house was a cottage on the edge of nowhere, surrounded by pine trees and silence so complete it felt oppressive. We'd driven for 3 hours, switching cars twice more, until Vittorio seemed satisfied we hadn't been followed. The whole time, he'd made calls, issued orders in that controlled voice that never wavered even when discussing violence. Now, standing in the small living room with its stone fireplace and worn furniture, the reality of what was happening finally hit me. "How long?" I asked. Vittorio was checking the windows, the doors, every possible entry point with military precision. "A week. Maybe less if my men work fast." "A week trapped here with you?" "Yes." He didn't look at me. "I'll take the couch. You get the bedroom." I laughed a sharp, slightly hysterical sound. "That's what you're worried about? Sleeping arrangements?" "I'm worried about everything." He finally turned, and I saw the exhaustion etched into his face. I'm worried they'll find us. I'm worried my own family will question why I'm protecting a waitress. I'm worried that keeping you alive might require me to do things that will make you hate me. I already should hate you. Should. He crossed to me slowly, like approaching a skittish animal. But you don't. I don't know what I feel. That was the truth. Fear, certainly. Anger. But underneath it all, something else, something dangerous and magnetic that pulled at me every time he was near. That makes two of us. He reached out, then stopped, hand hovering between us. I should have left you alone, Maya. Should have paid for the coffee and walked away, but I looked at you, and I saw… What? Light. His hand dropped. In a world that's been dark for so long, I'd forgotten light existed. The fireplace crackled. Outside, wind moved through the pines with a sound like whispered secrets. Tell me about your world, I said. The real one, not the newspaper version. He studied me for a long moment, then moved to the fireplace, bracing his hands on the mantel. You don't want to know. I'm here, aren't I? Hiding in the woods because someone wants to kill me. I think I've earned the truth. A muscle jumped in his jaw. Then, quietly, my father built our empire on 3 principles: loyalty, fear, and control. When he died, I inherited all of it, the businesses, the territory, the enemies. I was 23. That's young. That's a death sentence, usually. He stared into the fire. The other families expected me to fail, to be weak, so I showed them I wasn't. His voice went flat. I did things that still wake me up at night. Made examples, drew lines in blood. And now I run the most powerful organization in 6 states. Now people whisper my name like a prayer or a curse. Now I can't remember the last time I slept through the night. He looked at me over his shoulder. Now I've dragged an innocent woman into hell because she was kind to me. I moved to him without planning to, drawn by the raw pain in his voice. You didn't drag me anywhere. I chose to warn you, chose to show up at that warehouse, chose to get in the car. Why? The question was almost angry. Why would you choose any of this? Because. I struggled for words. Because everyone deserves to be saved, even monsters. He turned then, and the look in his eyes made my breath catch. I don't deserve you. Probably not. I'll get you killed. Maybe. I can't promise you safety. Can't promise you anything except that as long as I'm breathing, I'll protect you with everything I have. That's a start. I was close enough now to see the gold flecks in his gray eyes, to feel the heat radiating from him. Maya. My name was a warning. Don't what? Don't look at me like that. Like I'm something other than what I am. What if you are? His hand came up, fingers threading through my hair with aching gentleness. What if I'm not? I rose on my toes, closing the distance. A phone rang. Not his this time. Mine. The one he'd given me. We both froze. No one has that number, Vittorio said, voice sharp. I pulled the phone out, staring at the unknown number on the screen. Don't answer it. His hand caught my wrist, but I was already swiping to answer. Hello? Static. Breathing. Then a voice that sounded like gravel and broken glass. We know where you are, little bird, and we're coming. The line went dead. Vittorio's expression went from concerned to lethal in a heartbeat. He snatched the phone, his fingers flying over the screen, then cursed in Italian. Pack, he ordered. Now. Whatever you have. We're leaving. But you said this place was safe. I was wrong. He was already moving, grabbing weapons from places I hadn't known they were hidden. They traced the phone somehow. We have maybe 10 minutes before the window exploded. Not glass this time. A canister, hissing and smoking, filling the room with acrid gas that burned my lungs and made my eyes water. Vittorio grabbed me, pressing a cloth over my face, his shirt ripped from his body. Don't breathe. Move. We stumbled toward the back door, but it burst open before we reached it. Men in tactical gear, faces covered, weapons raised. Vittorio fired once, twice, and they fell. But more were coming. Always more. This way. He pulled me toward what looked like a coat closet, but when he hit a hidden panel, a staircase appeared, leading down into darkness. We descended into what must have been a basement, but it was set up like a bunker, concrete walls, supplies, another arsenal of weapons. Every safe house has a way out, Vittorio said, sealing the door behind us. Just in case. Above us, footsteps, shouting. The sound of the house being torn apart. They'll find this, I whispered. I know. He was loading weapons with practiced efficiency. That's why we're not staying. He led me to the far wall, where another panel revealed a tunnel narrow, dark, stretching into nothing. Crawl, he said. I'll be right behind you. Vittorio. Crawl. I crawled. The tunnel was longer than it looked, claustrophobic and smelling of earth and decay. Behind me, I could hear Vittorio moving, his breathing steady despite everything. We emerged into the woods, far from the cottage. In the distance, I could see lights, flashlights, searching. Vittorio pulled out a phone, not the one they'd traced, a different one, and made a call. Marco, I need extraction. Now. He gave coordinates, then ended the call. 10 minutes, he said, pulling me deeper into the trees. We huddled behind a massive pine, his body wrapped around mine, both of us breathing hard. His hand was still pressed over my mouth, and I could feel his heart hammering against my back. I'm sorry, he whispered into my hair. I'm so fucking sorry. I reached up, pulling his hand away. Stop apologizing and keep me alive. In the darkness, I felt more than saw him smile. Yes, ma'am. The helicopter arrived exactly 10 minutes later, its spotlight turning the forest into day. And as we climbed aboard, I looked back at the cottage now crawling with armed men and realized there was no going back. Not to my apartment. Not to my old life. Maybe not ever. The helicopter took us to a compound I hadn't known existed. A sprawling estate hidden behind walls and gates, and the kind of security that made the safe house look like a playground. Family property, Vittorio explained as we landed. My grandfather built it. Nuclear fallout shelter underneath. Enough supplies to last years. Comforting, I muttered. He helped me out of the helicopter, his hand lingering on my waist longer than necessary. In the artificial light from the landing pad, I could see the strain in his face, the way his jaw was locked tight. You're hurt, I said, noticing the dark stain spreading across his shirt. Caught some shrapnel. It's nothing. You're bleeding. I said it's nothing. But his voice was tight with pain. I grabbed his wrist. Inside. Now. Where's the medical kit? Maya, don't argue with me. Not about this. Something in my tone made him comply. He led me through marble hallways into a library that smelled of leather and old money. A medical kit sat on a side table, clearly recently stocked. Shirt off, I ordered. He complied, and I tried not to stare at the landscape of his body, all lean muscle and old scars and new wounds. The shrapnel had torn a gash along his side, shallow but bleeding freely. This is going to hurt, I warned. Everything hurts. But he sat perfectly still as I cleaned the wound, only hissing once when I pressed too hard. You can't keep doing this, I said quietly, focusing on my work instead of his face. Getting shot at, stabbed, whatever. Eventually, your luck will run out. I know. Then why? Because it's what I am. His hand covered mine, stilling my movements. Because I was born into this, and there's no walking away. You leave this life feet first or not at all. I looked up at him then, at those gray eyes that held so much darkness. That's a terrible way to live. It's the only way I know. His thumb traced circles on my wrist. Until I met you. Don't say things like that. Why not? It's true. He pulled me closer, until I was standing between his legs, his hands bracketing my hips. You make me want things I can't have. Like what? Normal, quiet. A life where I don't check every room for exits, and sleep with a gun under my pillow. His forehead dropped to my stomach, and I felt him shudder. You make me want to be someone different. My hands found his hair without permission, fingers threading through the dark strands. You can't change what you are. I know. His arms wrapped around my waist, pulling me impossibly closer. But when you touch me, I forget. For just a moment, I forget everything except how you make me feel. How do I make you feel? He looked up at me, and there was something raw and unguarded in his expression. Like I'm worth saving. The words hung between us, heavy with meaning. I should have stepped back, should have finished bandaging him and walked away. Instead, I cupped his face in my hands. You are worth saving. You don't know what I've done. Tell me, Maya. Tell me. So he did. He told me about the man he'd killed when he was 17, his first kill. An enemy who'd threatened his sister. Told me about the territory wars, the bodies, the blood on his hands that never quite washed clean. Told me about the woman he'd almost loved once, who'd betrayed him for money and ended up at the bottom of the harbor. He spoke in that low, controlled voice, but I could hear the cracks in it. The places where the monster ended and the man began. When he finished, the room was silent except for the tick of a grandfather clock in the corner. "Say something," he said finally. I should run screaming. "But you won't." "No." I traced the line of his jaw. "I won't." "Why not?" "Because you're not just a monster, Vittorio. You're also the man who said thank you after a shootout, who bought a diner to keep me safe, who holds me like I'm something precious when your world is falling apart." His hands tightened on my hips. "You're going to break my heart. Maybe you'll break mine first." "I probably will." He stood, and suddenly we were chest to chest, his breath warm against my face. "I should send you away, put you on a plane to somewhere safe, give you a new name, a new life. But you won't." "No." His hand came up, fingers threading through my hair. "I'm too selfish, too hungry for whatever this is between us." "What is this?" I whispered. "I don't know. Madness, maybe. Or fate." His nose brushed mine. "But I can't let you go." "Then don't." I rose on my toes, closing the last inch of distance, and kissed him. It was different from anything I'd expected, not rough or demanding, but almost reverent, like he was memorizing the feel of my lips against his, the taste of me, the way I sighed into his mouth. His hands framed my face, holding me like I might disappear. When his tongue traced my lower lip, I opened for him, and the kiss deepened into something darker, hungrier. I felt it then, the edge he was walking, the control he was barely maintaining. He kissed me like a man starving, like I was oxygen and he'd been drowning. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. His pupils were blown wide, his hands shaking where they held my face. "I should stop," he said. "Should. I'm going to want more. I know. Maya." My name was a plea and a warning. "If we do this, if we cross this line, I won't be able to let you go. Not ever. Maybe I don't want you to." Something shifted in his expression, something possessive and dark and almost desperate. "You don't know what you're saying." "I know exactly what I'm saying." I kissed him again, softer this time. "I know you're dangerous. I know you've killed people. I know I should run as far and fast as I can. But when I'm with you, I feel alive for the first time in years." I traced the line of his collarbone. "And maybe that makes me as crazy as you are." He laughed a real laugh, rough and surprised. "We're quite a pair. Terrible. Probably. Definitely." He kissed my forehead, my cheeks, the corner of my mouth. "But I don't care." His phone buzzed the third interruption of the night. He growled, pulling it out, and his expression immediately darkened. "What?" I asked. "My uncle." He showed me the screen, a summons, formal and cold. "He wants to meet you." "Why?" "Because the whole family knows about you now. And they want to know why I'm risking everything for a waitress I barely know." "What will you tell them?" He looked at me for a long moment, something unreadable in his eyes. "The truth, which is, that you're mine." He pulled me against him, his voice dropping to something fierce and possessive. "And anyone who touches you will die screaming." It should have scared me. Instead, it made heat pool low in my belly. "When?" I asked. "Tomorrow." He kissed my temple. "Tonight, you're safe. Tonight, you're mine. I'm not an object, Vittorio. No." His smile was dark. "You're so much more dangerous than that." The Constantino family met in a room that looked like it belonged in a Renaissance painting. Frescoed ceilings, mahogany table, portraits of dead patriarchs glaring down with expressions of perpetual disappointment. I sat next to Vittorio, hyper-aware of every eye on me. There were 8 of them uncles, cousins, his younger sister Isabella, who watched me with open curiosity. At the head of the table sat his uncle Domenico, the family consigliere, whose face looked carved from stone. "So," Domenico said, his English accented and precise. "This is the waitress. Her name is Maya," Vittorio said, voice dangerous. "Maya." Domenico smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Forgive me. I'm simply trying to understand why my nephew has started a war over a woman he met a week ago." "I haven't started anything. The Volkovs were contained until you made this girl a target." Domenico's hand slapped the table. "Now they're hunting her, which means they're hunting us. You've exposed a vulnerability, Vittorio. Given our enemies a weapon." "She's not a weapon. She's..." "What?" His uncle leaned forward. "Your lover? Your obsession? Tell me, nephew, what is she that makes her worth more than family blood?" The room went silent. Everyone was staring at Vittorio, waiting. "She's mine," he said finally, and his voice carried an edge I'd never heard before. That's all you need to know. Is it? This from a younger cousin, Marco. Because from where I sit, she's a liability. A weakness. Maybe we'd all be better off if... Vittorio was out of his chair so fast I barely saw him move. He had Marco by the throat, slamming him against the wall hard enough to crack the plaster. Finish that sentence, Vittorio growled. I dare you. Vittorio! Isabella was on her feet. Please. He didn't mean... He meant it. Vittorio's hand tightened. Just like all of you are thinking it. That she's expendable. That cutting her loose would solve everything. Wouldn't it? Domenico asked calmly. Send her away. New identity, new life. The Volkovs lose interest. We all survive. Vittorio released Marco, who slumped to the floor, gasping. When he turned back to the table, his expression was something between rage and despair. No, he said. Vittorio. No. He moved back to me, his hand finding mine under the table. I won't sacrifice her. Not for peace. Not for anything. Domenico sighed. Then you leave us no choice. The room temperature seemed to drop. I felt Vittorio tense beside me. What does that mean? I asked, finding my voice. It means, Domenico said, looking at me directly for the first time, that you are either with this family or you are against it. There is no middle ground. I never wanted to be part of this. And yet here you are. He spread his hands. A witness to our business. A weakness in our armor. The Volkovs will use you, Maya. They'll torture you for information, kill you to hurt him, or worse, they'll turn you against us. I would never. Everyone breaks eventually. His smile was pitying. You seem like a nice girl. Strong even. But you haven't seen what they're capable of, what any of us are capable of when pushed. Vittorio stood, pulling me up with him. We're done here. Sit down, nephew. I said we're done. Vittorio's voice could have cut steel. I don't need your permission or your blessing. Maya stays with me. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me personally. You'd turn your back on family? Isabella asked softly. For her? Vittorio looked at his sister for a long moment. I'd burn the world for her. Family included. The silence that followed was suffocating. Then Domenico laughed a dry, humorless sound. You're your father's son after all. Stubborn, reckless, willing to risk everything for a feeling. My father built this empire. Your father died at 43 with a bullet in his brain. Domenico stood. Love makes you weak, Vittorio. I thought you knew that. Maybe. Vittorio's hand tightened on mine. But I'd rather be weak and human than strong and empty. We left without another word, Vittorio practically dragging me through the halls. I could feel the fury rolling off him in waves, see it in the set of his shoulders and the white-knuckled grip on my hand. He led me to a bedroom not his, I realized, but a guest suite, with windows overlooking the garden. Stay here, he ordered. Don't open the door for anyone but me. Vittorio. Please, Maya. Just do what I ask for once. He left before I could respond, the door closing with a soft click that sounded final. I was alone for 2 hours, long enough to pace the room 100 times, to stare out the windows at the manicured gardens and high walls, to realize just how trapped I was. When the door finally opened, I spun around, but it wasn't Vittorio. Isabella slipped inside, closing the door quietly behind her. She was younger than her brother, maybe 25, with the same dark hair and sharp cheekbones but softer eyes. You should leave, she said without preamble. Excuse me? Leave. Tonight. I can help you. New passport, money, a flight to anywhere you want. She moved closer. But you have to go now, before he destroys himself trying to protect you. I don't understand. My brother loves you. She said it simply, like stating a fact. I've never seen him like this. Not ever. And it's going to get him killed. I never asked him to. It doesn't matter what you asked. He's chosen you, and that choice will destroy him. Her voice was urgent now. The family won't accept you. The Volkovs won't stop, and Vittorio won't back down. So the only way this ends is with him dead or you gone. My throat tightened. He said he'd protect me. He will, until they put a bullet in his head. Isabella gripped my shoulders. I'm begging you. If you care about him at all, leave. Save him by disappearing. I can't just... The door burst open. Vittorio stood there, and the look on his face made me step back. Get out, he said to his sister. Vittorio, get out. His voice was lethal. Now. Isabella shot me one last desperate look, then fled. Vittorio closed the door, locked it, and leaned against it like his legs might give out. In the lamplight, I could see the exhaustion etched into every line of his face. "What did she say?" he asked. "That I should leave, that staying will get you killed." "She's right," he laughed bitterly. "But I don't care. You should. I should do a lot of things." He moved to me slowly. "Should have left you in that diner. Should have sent you away the moment I realized what you were becoming to me. Should have protected you by letting you go. Why didn't you? Because I'm selfish." His hands framed my face. "Because 1 week with you has been more real than 30 years without you. Because when I look at you, I see everything I never let myself want. Vittorio, I love you." The words came out rough, almost angry. "I love you, and it's going to ruin us both, but I can't stop. Won't stop." I stared at him, my heart a hammer in my chest. "You barely know me. I know enough." His forehead dropped to mine. "I know you're brave and kind, and you see me. Really see me. And I know that losing you would kill me faster than any bullet. This is insane. I know. We're going to die. Probably." His smile was sad. "But at least we'll die together. And God help me, that felt like enough." The attack came at dawn. I woke to the sound of gunfire, distant at first, then closer. Vittorio was already up, pulling on clothes, strapping on weapons with practiced efficiency. "Stay here," he ordered. "Away from the windows." "What's happening?" "They're here." His face was grim. "The Volkovs. They're hitting the compound." "How many?" "Too many." He checked his gun, then looked at me with eyes that held too much goodbye. "If I don't come back, don't say that. Listen." He gripped my shoulders. "If I don't come back, Marco will get you out. He has orders. You'll be taken somewhere safe, given everything you need to start over. I don't want to start over without you. You will if you have to." He kissed me hard and desperate. "Promise me, Vittorio. Promise me." "I promise." He left, and I was alone with the sound of warfare. I should have stayed put. Should have hidden like he asked. But when the gunfire got closer and I heard screaming, something in me snapped. I grabbed the gun he'd left in the nightstand, shown me how to use days ago, just in case, and moved into the hallway. The compound was chaos. Smoke, shouts, bodies. I saw members of Vittorio's family fighting back, saw strangers in dark clothes pushing forward with military precision. Then I saw him. Vittorio stood in the main hall, surrounded by 4 men. Blood streaked his face, his shirt was torn, and he moved like violence incarnate, brutal, efficient, beautiful in a terrible way. He took down 2 before the third got a shot off. I saw him stumble, saw the blood bloom across his shoulder. Something primal roared to life inside me. I raised the gun, aimed the way he'd taught me, and fired. The man dropped. Vittorio's head snapped toward me, eyes wide. "Maya." "No." But I was already moving forward, firing again at the 4th man. The recoil jolted through me, and my shot went wide, but it was enough distraction for Vittorio to finish it. Then it was over, that wave of it, anyway. Bodies on the floor, smoke clearing, both of us standing in the wreckage, breathing hard. "I told you to stay hidden," Vittorio said. "I don't take orders well. You could have been killed. So could you." I lowered the gun, my hands shaking. "I couldn't just hide while you." He crossed the distance between us in 3 strides and kissed me. It was fierce and desperate and tasted like smoke and copper. "You saved my life," he breathed against my mouth. "We're even now. We'll never be even." His hands were in my hair, on my face, like he needed to confirm I was real. "Maya." An explosion rocked the building. We were thrown to the floor, debris raining down. My ears rang, and for a moment I couldn't tell up from down. "Move!" Vittorio hauled me to my feet, pulling me through smoke and chaos toward the east wing. Behind us, I heard more gunfire, shouting, Isabella's voice screaming something in Italian. "Your sister. Marco has her. We need to get you out." We burst into a library I hadn't seen before. Vittorio moved to a bookshelf, pulling volumes in a specific sequence. A panel slid open, revealing a staircase. "Emergency exit," he explained. "Comes out 1/2 a mile from here. There's a car waiting. I'm not leaving without you." "You have to." "No." I grabbed his bloody shirt. "We leave together or not at all." His jaw clenched. "If we stay, we die. Then we die together." For a moment, he just looked at me. Then he laughed, a wild, slightly unhinged sound. "You're going to be the death of me. Maybe, but not today." He kissed me again, quick and hard. "Together, then. always. We took the stairs 2 at a time, emerging into a tunnel that smelled of earth and old concrete. It stretched into darkness, lit only by emergency lights spaced far apart. Behind us, another explosion. The tunnel shook, dust raining from the ceiling. "Run," Vittorio said. We ran. The tunnel felt endless. My lungs burned, my legs ached, but I kept pace with him, his hand locked around mine like a lifeline. Finally, we emerged into pre-dawn light. A black car idled nearby. Marco at the wheel. "Get in!" he shouted. We dove into the back seat as gunfire erupted behind us. Bullets pinged off the armored exterior as Marco floored it, tires screaming. "The family?" Vittorio demanded. "Isabella's safe. Domenico took a hit, but he'll live. We lost 5 men." Marco's voice was tight. "The Volkovs lost 15. They're retreating." Vittorio slumped back, pulling me against him. I could feel his heart hammering, could smell the gunpowder and blood on him. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Somewhere they'll never find us." He kissed my temple. "Somewhere we can breathe. Does such a place exist? We'll make it exist." We drove for an hour, switching cars twice, before pulling up to a small airfield. A private jet waited, engines already running. "You're leaving?" Marco asked as we got out. "For a while." Vittorio clasped his arm. "Keep Isabella safe. Tell Domenico I'll call when we land." "Where?" "Better you don't know." Marco looked at me, then back at Vittorio. "You really love her, more than anything. Then go." Marco smiled, tired but genuine. "Be happy, cousin. God knows you've earned it." On the plane, Vittorio finally let himself collapse. I helped him to a seat, examining his wounds with shaking hands. "I need a medical kit," I called to the flight attendant. She brought one quickly, then disappeared into the cockpit, giving us privacy. "You're shot," I said, peeling back his bloody shirt. "Just a graze." "That's more than a graze. I've had worse," but he winced as I cleaned the wound. I worked in silence, focusing on the task instead of the reality of what had just happened. We'd been in a war zone. I'd killed someone, almost died, and now we were fleeing the country. "Where are we going?" I asked as I bandaged him. "Malta. I have a villa there. No one knows about it. I bought it years ago under a different name." He caught my hand. "We'll be safe there. For a while at least. And then? I don't know." His thumb traced circles on my wrist. "I'll have to go back eventually. Deal with the fallout. Make peace or finish the war. But not yet. Not yet." He pulled me onto his lap, careful of his injuries. "Right now, I just want to exist somewhere that isn't drenched in blood and violence. With you." I traced the line of his jaw, feeling the stubble rough under my fingers. "I killed someone today. I know. I don't feel what I should feel. Guilt or horror or, you feel what you feel. No right or wrong to it." He kissed my forehead. "You saved my life, Maya. That's all that matters." "Is it? To me, yes." His arms tightened around me. "I know what you sacrificed today. What you gave up. Your innocence, your safety. Any chance at a normal life. I gave it up the moment I warned you in that diner. No, you gave it up the moment you chose to stay with me instead of running." His voice dropped to something raw. "And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worth that choice. You already are." The plane lifted off, carrying us away from war, and family, and everything we knew. And as we climbed into the dawn sky, Vittorio held me like I was the only real thing in a world of shadows. "I love you," I whispered against his chest. "I know." His hand stroked my hair. "I know, amor mio. And I'll love you until it kills me." "Don't say that. It's true." He tilted my face up to his. "But I'll fight to make it a long, happy death. A life worth living first. Promise. Promise." And for the first time since that day in the diner, I let myself believe him. Malta was everything the compound wasn't. White stone and blue water, sun-soaked and peaceful. The villa sat on a cliff overlooking the Mediterranean, isolated enough that we could breathe without checking for threats. For 3 days, we slept. For 3 more, we healed. Vittorio's wounds closed slowly, and I learned the landscape of his scars, both old and new. On the 7th day, I woke to find him on the terrace, watching the sunrise with a cup of coffee. "Couldn't sleep?" I asked, wrapping my arms around him from behind. "Too many dreams." He covered my hands with his. "Or maybe not enough." "Which kind?" "Both." He turned in my arms, studying my face like he was memorizing it. I keep thinking this is temporary, that I'll wake up and you'll be gone. I'm not going anywhere. You should. But his arms tightened around me. A smart woman would have run the moment she saw what I really was. Then it's lucky for you I'm not that smart. He smiled, a real one this time, soft and unguarded. The luckiest man alive. I traced the scar along his collarbone, a thin white line that ended near his heart. How did you get this one? Knife fight when I was 16. Guy twice my size. His hand covered mine. My father watched. Said if I survived, I'd be strong enough to lead one day. That's horrible. That was my life. No bitterness in his voice, just fact. But this, he gestured to the villa, the sea, us. This is something different. Something I never thought I'd have. What is it? Peace. He said it like a confession. With you, I feel peace. I rose on my toes, kissing him softly. He responded immediately, his hand sliding into my hair, tilting my head to deepen the kiss. It was different this time, slower, more deliberate. Like we had all the time in the world instead of borrowed moments between violence. Maya, he breathed against my lips. I know. I pulled back enough to meet his eyes. I want it too. Something shifted in his expression, heat and hunger, and something softer underneath. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. He lifted me effortlessly, carrying me inside to the bedroom. Sunlight streamed through the windows, painting everything gold. He laid me on the bed with surprising gentleness, his body covering mine. Tell me if you want to stop. I won't want to stop. His laugh was low and rough. We'll see. He kissed me again, his hands mapping my body like territory to be claimed. When his lips moved to my neck, I arched into him, feeling the solid weight of him, the heat. Clothes disappeared slowly, his shirt, my dress, each piece removed with reverence rather than urgency. He studied me in the morning light, and I felt beautiful under his gaze. You're perfect, he murmured, pressing kisses along my collarbone, between my breasts, down my stomach. I'm not. To me, you are. He looked up at me, and the raw emotion in his eyes stole my breath. Everything I never let myself want. Everything I don't deserve. I pulled him back up to me. Then take what you don't deserve. Take me. He did. It was slow and intense and overwhelming. Every touch deliberate, every kiss a claim. He moved inside me like he was memorizing the feel of us together. And when I gasped his name, he swallowed the sound with his mouth. Afterward, we lay tangled together, sweaty and satisfied, listening to the waves crash against the cliffs. I love you, he said into my hair. In case that wasn't clear, I laughed, the sound, light and free. It was pretty clear. Good. His arms tightened. Because I plan to keep making it clear. Every day. For as long as you'll let me. That might be a long time. I'm counting on it. We spent the next week in a bubble that felt fragile and precious. We swam in the sea, ate fresh fish, made love in every room of the villa. He taught me Italian curse words, and I taught him how to make decent coffee. It was domestic and strange, and perfect. But reality couldn't be held off forever. On the 14th day, his phone rang. The one he'd turned off since we arrived. The one he'd promised not to check. He stared at it for a long time before answering. Yes? I watched his face change as he listened, saw the peaceful man disappear, and the Mafia boss return. How bad? A pause. When? Another pause. I understand. He hung up and sat heavily on the couch, head in his hands. What happened? I asked, sitting beside him. Domenico is dead. The Volkovs hit him 2 days ago. His voice was flat, and they're calling for a sit-down. To discuss terms. Terms? Peace. Surrender. Whatever you want to call it. He looked at me, and his eyes were tired. They want me to come home. Will you? I have to. The family needs leadership. Without it, we'll be picked apart piece by piece. Then I'm coming with you. No. He said it immediately, forcefully. It's too dangerous. I don't care. Maya. Don't. I gripped his hand. Don't ask me to stay here while you walk into what might be a trap. Don't ask me to be safe while you risk everything. If something happens to me, then we'll deal with it together. I moved to straddle him, forcing him to look at me. You said always, Vittorio. You said together. So that's what we do. Together. He closed his eyes, resting his forehead against mine. You're going to be the death of me. We've established that. Stubborn woman. You love it. I do. He opened his eyes, and they held that mix of fear and love and resignation. God help me, I do. Then it settled. We go back together. Together. He pulled me down for a kiss that tasted like goodbye and hello and everything between. But when we get there, you stay close to me. Always. Always, I echoed. That night, lying in bed with the windows open to let in the sea breeze, he held me tighter than usual. Whatever happens, he said quietly, I want you to know these 2 weeks have been the happiest of my life. They're not ending, Vittorio. This is just beginning. You're an optimist. You're a pessimist. We balance each other out. He laughed, pressing a kiss to my shoulder. I don't deserve you. Stop saying that. It's true. It's not. I turned in his arms, looking at him in the moonlight. You deserve to be loved, to be happy, to have a life beyond blood and violence. And you think you can give me that? I think we can build it together. I touched his face. If you'll let me. He was quiet for a long time. Then, I'll try. For you, I'll try to be more than what I was made to be. That's all I ask. We made love again. Slower this time, like we were sealing a promise. And when we finally slept, wrapped around each other, I dreamed of futures that didn't end in bullets and blood. But dreams, I was learning, were often just that. Dreams. The flight back felt like traveling to an execution. Vittorio was different now, harder, colder, the man I'd first met in the diner fully resurrected. He spent the flight making calls, issuing orders, his voice that controlled weapon I'd come to recognize. But his hand never left mine. We landed after dark, and Marco met us with an armored SUV and grim news. The sit-down is in 2 hours, he said as we drove through familiar streets. Neutral territory. The Volkovs are bringing 6 men. You can bring the same. Who's asking for peace? Vittorio asked. They are. Rumor is their boss wants to retire, and the war is costing them too much. Marco glanced in the rearview mirror. Could be legitimate. Could be a trap. It's probably both. Vittorio stared out the window at the passing city. But we go anyway. The family can't sustain this fight much longer. What if they want her? Marco nodded toward me. As part of the deal? Then we go to war until every last one of them is dead. No hesitation. No negotiation in his voice. Marco smiled grimly. Thought you'd say that. The meeting place was an old church that hadn't held services in decades, neutral ground, witnessed by ghosts and shadows. Vittorio's men checked it for weapons and traps while we waited outside. You don't have to come in, Vittorio said to me. You can wait in the car. Together, I reminded him. Always. He looked like he wanted to argue but nodded instead. Stay behind me. If anything happens, Marco will get you out. Nothing's going to happen. You don't know that. Neither do you. His smile was tired. Always so sure. One of us has to be. We entered the church together. It smelled of dust and decay and old incense. The Volkovs waited at the altar, 6 men in dark suits, their faces hard and unreadable. At the center stood their boss, Dmitri Volkov, older than I'd expected, with silver hair and eyes like ice. Constantino, he said by way of greeting. You came. You called for peace. I'm listening. And you brought the girl. Dmitri's gaze slid to me. The one who started all this. I didn't start anything. Maya. Vittorio's hand tightened on mine. A warning. No, let her speak. Dmitri moved closer, studying me like I was a puzzle. You warned him, in the diner. Why? Because it was the right thing to do. The right thing. He laughed a dry, humorless sound. And for that, 20 men are dead. For doing the right thing. Your men shot first, I said. They were following orders, just as Constantino's men were following his. Dmitri turned back to Vittorio. This war has cost both our families too much. It's time to end it. What are your terms? Simple. The waterfront territory remains contested. We divide it equally. No more raids, no more ambushes. And the girl. He paused. She's off limits. To everyone. Vittorio's body tensed beside me. Explain. Word has spread. Other families are watching, wondering if she's your weakness. I'm making it clear she's untouchable. You have my word and the word of the Bratva that anyone who harms her answers to me. Why? I asked before I could stop myself. Dmitri looked at me with something almost like respect. Because you did the right thing. And in our world, that's rare enough to be worth protecting. The church was silent except for the sound of rain starting to fall outside. "And if I don't accept?" Vittorio asked. "Then we continue this war until one of us is dead. Maybe both." Dimitri shrugged. "But I'm tired, Constantino. I've been doing this for 30 years. I want to retire, leave the business to my son. Can't do that with bullets flying." Vittorio studied him for a long moment. "Then, the waterfront territory, divided equally, with clear boundaries. No raids. No retribution for past actions. Agreed. And Maya remains untouchable. By your people and anyone who values their relationship with the Bratva. Agreed. Then we have peace." They shook hands, two men who'd spent months trying to kill each other, now making promises in a dead church. As we left, Dimitri called out, "Constantino, a word of advice?" Vittorio paused. "Don't waste it. This peace, this life, this woman who was stupid enough to love you." Dimitri's smile was sad. "I wasted mine. Don't make the same mistake." Outside, the rain had turned into a downpour. We ran to the SUV, and Marco drove us home through flooded streets. "It's over?" I asked. "For now." Vittorio pulled me against him. "In our world, peace is always temporary. But I'll take whatever time we get, and then we fight again, or we don't. Maybe we just live." He kissed my temple. "Is that enough for you? This uncertain, violent life?" I thought about the waitress I'd been 2 weeks ago pouring coffee. Invisible, going through motions. Thought about the woman I was now bloodstained, wanted, in love with a dangerous man. "It's more than enough," I said. We spent that night at the compound, now repaired and reinforced. Isabella met us at the door, throwing her arms around Vittorio. "You're alive," she breathed. "We're alive," he hugged her back. "And it's over, for now. Domenico would be proud." She pulled back, wiping her eyes. "You made peace, kept the family safe. We'll see how long it lasts." Later, alone in his bedroom, the one he'd grown up in, with photographs of a younger, less scarred version of himself on the walls, he finally let the mask drop. "I'm tired," he said, sitting on the edge of the bed with his head in his hands. "So fucking tired of all of this." I knelt in front of him, taking his hands in mine. "Then stop. I can't just—" "Yes, you can." I kissed his knuckles. "Name someone to run things. Step back, build something different. And do what?" "Live." I smiled up at him. "With me. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere the past can't reach us." "That's a fantasy. So was peace, but you made it happen." I moved to sit beside him. "I'm not saying disappear completely, but you don't have to be on the front lines anymore. You've earned the right to breathe." He looked at me for a long time, something shifting in his expression. "You really believe that?" "I do." "And you'd stay with me? Even if I'm not the powerful Constantino heir anymore? Just me?" I fell in love with the man in booth 7, remember? Not the title. Not the empire. Just you. He kissed me, then soft and sweet and full of promises. "Then let's do it. Let's build something real." "You mean it?" "I do." He pulled me into his lap. "I'll hand leadership to Marco. He's good, fair. The family will survive without me. And us? We'll find a place, maybe by the water. Small, quiet." His arms tightened around me. "I'll teach you Italian. You'll teach me to cook something other than eggs. We'll have a boring, beautiful life, with occasional visits from your terrifying family. With occasional visits from my terrifying family." He laughed. "Think you can handle that?" "I handled a shootout in a diner. I think I can handle Sunday dinners. That's my girl." We made love that night with the windows open. Rain falling outside, washing away blood and violence and the weight of the past. And when we finally slept, it was with the knowledge that tomorrow wouldn't be easy, but it would be ours. 6 months later, I stood on the porch of a small house overlooking the water, not Malta, but somewhere similar, somewhere peaceful. Vittorio came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist, and I leaned back into him. "Coffee's ready," he said. "You made coffee?" "I'm learning." He kissed my neck. "Eventually, I'll be as good at normal life as I was at crime. That's a low bar." "Hey." He turned me in his arms, pretending to be offended. "I'm an excellent criminal." "You're retired now." "Semi-retired." He grinned. "Marco still calls sometimes, to ask for advice, not to send you into battle." "True." He grew serious, cupping my face. "Are you happy, Maya?" I looked at this man, scarred and dangerous, and learning to be soft, learning to be human. deliriously. Even though our life is weird and occasionally violent, and we can never fully escape the past, especially because of that. I kissed him. We earned this. Every quiet moment, every normal day. We paid for it in blood and fear, and choosing each other when we should have run. Best decision I ever made. Me too. We stood there as the sun rose over the water. Two people who'd survived the impossible, and chosen to build something real from the wreckage. The coffee was terrible. The life we were building was beautiful. And that was enough. That was everything.